It happened on one of those nights that blur between exhaustion and quiet peace. I had just finished a late shift, the streets nearly empty, the kind of silence that makes every sound echo a little louder than it should. My car had broken down an hour earlier, so I was walking the last few blocks home through the park, cutting across to save time. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, hurried and uneven, like someone running without direction. Before I could turn, a hand shot out from the darkness and gripped my arm. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Pretend you're my husband." For a second, I thought she was drunk or confused. But then I saw the fear in her eyes. Pure, raw terror. Her hand was cold, shaking, her breath coming out in gasps. Behind her, in the faint glow of the street lamp, a man's silhouette lingered near the path, watching. Instinct kicked in. I slipped my arm around her shoulders and said, steady as I could, "There you are, sweetheart." I was worried. The figure in the shadows froze, then slowly turned away. I watched until he disappeared into the dark before looking back at her. She exhaled, the kind of shaky relief that sounds almost like a sob. "Thank you," she whispered, pressing a hand to her chest. I didn't know what else to do. We stood there for a moment, catching our breath. She was maybe in her early 30s, wrapped in a light coat that didn't match the chill in the air. Her hair was messy, her lipstick smudged, and her eyes, they looked like they hadn't seen a good night's sleep in weeks. I asked softly, "Do you want me to call someone?" "The police." She shook her head quickly. "No, please, no police. I'll be fine. I just needed a minute." Something about her voice made me believe her, even though everything in the situation screamed otherwise. "I live just across the park," I offered. "You can sit for a while if you need to." She hesitated, then nodded. We walked in silence, our steps crunching softly on the gravel path. When we reached my porch light, she finally spoke again. "My name's Claire," she said quietly. "I'm sorry for grabbing you like that." "Ethan," I replied, "and you don't have to apologize. You looked like you needed help." She smiled faintly, grateful, fragile. "I did. More than you know." Inside, I made her tea, unsure what else to do. She sat at the edge of the couch, hands clasped, staring at the steam as if it held answers. When she finally spoke, it came out in fragments. An argument with someone, a car that wouldn't start, a man who wouldn't take no for an answer. It all sounded messy but real. Too real. By the time she finished, the clock read 3 a.m. She stood to leave, insisting she'd take a cab. I walked her to the door, and as she turned to thank me again, she hesitated, eyes soft but searching. "Most people wouldn't have helped," she said. "You did." I shrugged. "Anyone would've." But we both knew that wasn't true. She gave a small, sad smile. "You'd be surprised." Then she was gone, disappearing into the night like someone fading out of a dream. I told myself that was the end of it. Just a strange encounter I'd remember for a few days before it blurred into life's background noise. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. The fear, the softness, the mystery in her eyes. And when I saw her again a week later, standing in the grocery store aisle holding a basket of fruit, I realized some stories don't end when they should. They linger, waiting for a chance to begin again. She noticed me before I could pretend not to stare. Her eyes widened for a second, then softened into a smile that looked almost relieved. "Ethan," she said, as if tasting the name again. "You remember me." "I don't think I could forget," I replied, managing a half-smile. We stood there in that small aisle surrounded by fruit and fluorescent lights, pretending this was a normal coincidence. It wasn't. She looked calmer now, but there was a tension behind her posture, like she was always ready to run. We talked for a few minutes about nothing, weather, work, small talk that meant less than it sounded. Then she said, "I owe you coffee. Least I can do for that night." I wanted to say no, to keep things simple, but something about the way she said it, gentle, certain, made it impossible. We met the next morning at a small cafe near the river. Claire wore a gray sweater, hair pulled back, no trace of the fear I remembered. She told me she worked part-time at a local art studio, that she loved painting but hadn't picked up a brush in months. Too many distractions, she said with a faint laugh, though her eyes dimmed when she said it. Distractions? I asked. She hesitated, then looked away. Marriage. It's complicated. I didn't push. But when she finally glanced back, the silence between us said more than words could. Over the next few weeks, we met often, sometimes by chance, sometimes not. It started with casual coffee, then walks by the park, then hours spent talking about everything that felt missing from our lives. She told me about her husband, Daniel, a man who looked perfect from the outside but ruled their home with quiet cruelty. No bruises, no screaming, just control disguised as care. He says I'm lucky he puts up with me, she murmured once, her voice trembling. He tells me that love is patience, but it feels more like punishment. I wanted to tell her to leave, to run, but I knew it wasn't that simple. People stay for 1,000 small reasons: fear, guilt, hope. One evening, she showed up at my place again, rain clinging to her hair, tears mixed with water on her cheeks. He found out I've been seeing someone, she said, voice breaking. He doesn't know it's you, but he knows. She looked so small then, so fragile, and I did what I shouldn't have. I pulled her close. For a moment, the world outside vanished. There was only the warmth of her skin, the scent of rain, the desperate need to feel something that wasn't fear. When she finally pulled away, she whispered, "We can't do this." "I know," I said, but neither of us moved. The next day, she disappeared. Her phone went straight to voicemail. The art studio said she hadn't shown up. For 2 weeks, nothing. Then, out of nowhere, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name on the front. Inside was a single page. "Ethan, you helped me remember what kindness feels like. But I can't stay. He's leaving the city, and I have to go with him. Maybe one day I'll have the courage to choose differently. Until then, thank you for saving me that night, and for making me believe I could still be saved. Claire." I read it a dozen times before folding it neatly and placing it in the drawer beside my bed. Some nights, I still take it out, tracing the faint smudge of her handwriting where a tear must have fallen. People talk about love like it's a victory, something you win. But sometimes, it's just a moment, a heartbeat between two storms. And for me, that moment began when a stranger grabbed my arm in the dark and whispered, "Pretend you're my husband." I did. And somehow, for a little while, I almost believed it myself.